Hey everyone, Fresh Classic WoW is just around the corner. It's coming out in a couple days, and I know a lot of you are still undecided on which character to play with the new Fresh drop. So today I'm going to be doing a tier list for classes for leveling in Vanilla World of Warcraft. This is going to be strictly for the leveling experience, which a lot of people argue is one of the beefiest and best parts of Vanilla WoW. The things I'm taking into consideration is just generally how fun I think it is to level as the class, how easy it is to level as the class, and also how much you dive into your class fantasy while you're leveling. So this can be things like flavorful class quests, which are pretty unique to Vanilla WoW and a big part of like leveling enjoyment for me personally. We will not be looking at things in regard to speed, although with ease of leveling comes speed of leveling generally. So a lot of the classes at the top of this tier list are probably going to be pretty easy to level and pretty fast. And without further ado, let's start off with Druid, which is one of my favorites. Druid vanilla leveling is definitely S tier in my opinion. One of the best classes you can level on. You get completely different play styles from 1 to 30. If you're doing the standard feral leveling route, you get a level 1 to 10 as a caster, 10 to 20 as a bear, and 20 plus as a cat, which is pretty fun. There's a lot of class flavor around. You have to do quests for your forms like aquatic form and bear form, and also they're just really good at leveling. You can do basically everything to keep yourself alive. You can root, you can heal, you can go into bear form for more survivability, you can play as cat for more DPS, you have stealth, and also you get around the world super quick. You can take the feline swiftness talent if you're playing feral, that lets you run faster outside, and you also get travel form at level 30. A lot of vanilla WoW leveling is walking around, and Druid gets a speed boost like starting from that feline swiftness talent or at level 30 if you don't take it. You can basically just do anything you want as a Druid leveling in vanilla WoW, and so definitely an S tier class for me. I think it's really fun. Next is Mage, which is another powerhouse that I'm putting in S tier. I don't even think you necessarily need to know how to AoE farm or need to AoE farm for Mage to be an S. I still think it's just that good for leveling, but knowing how to AoE farm and doing it definitely helps a lot. AoE farming mages, if you have the ability to, meaning like there's not a lot of people around killing the same stuff that you're killing and you have a lot of practice at it, those are some of the fastest leveling players in vanilla WoW in general. But even without that, Mage just has a ton of damage, a ton of utility, and a lot of ease of travel. You do a ton of damage. You can root things basically whenever you want after you get Frost Nova. If you're leveling as Frost Spec, you have even more utility than that. The one downside to Mage leveling, of course, is that you have to stop and drink a ton, but that kind of just comes with the territory, and often you make up for it with your kill speeds. Not to mention, once you start getting access to teleportation spells, you can travel around the world a lot quicker than basically any other class. Being able to self-teleport to any major city is a huge win, especially in vanilla WoW leveling, where you're going to be bouncing between a ton of zones, and sometimes you'll be really far away from a capital city. So AoE farming or no AoE farming, Mage, in my opinion, is absolutely an S tier vanilla WoW leveling experience. I really enjoy it. Next class is Rogue, which I'm putting in A tier. I think Rogue is really strong for vanilla leveling most of the time, but there's a couple things holding it back from S tier for me personally. Talking about the strengths first, you actually get some of the best leveling talents in the game early on, so you can go into the assassination tree and get Remorseless, which is debatably the best leveling talent in the game at that level, and then you also get Riposte from the combat tree, which is an amazing leveling talent. So if you're doing the standard combat leveling route, by level 22 I think you'll have Riposte and Remorseless and you'll be cruising. You also have a ton of utility, of course. That's what rogues are known for. You have Evasion, Blind, Vanish, of course, can get you out of most situations. Honestly, this is still just a really fun class to level and a pretty good class. The main two reasons I don't have it in S tier is, number one, I think it has the worst 1 to 10 leveling experience of any class in the game. That's just my personal opinion. You do pretty mediocre damage and you take a ton of damage as a rogue before level 10. I leveled rogue a little bit in hardcore, and it definitely was not fun leveling 1 to 10 as this class. You're a melee class that's built for dual wielding, but you only get to use one of your two weapons until level 10. You also wear leather, which can cause you to take a ton of damage, and that's really the second reason I have it in A tier and not S tier, is because it is wearing leather and you get beat on a lot. You take a lot more damage as a leather wearer, and so still a really good leveling class. I have a ton of fun with it in vanilla. The class flavor is also super good with the poison quest especially. It's a high A tier leveling experience for me for vanilla World of Warcraft Rogue. Next on the docket is Shaman, which I have in B tier. I actually have a ton of experience with Shaman. It's my most played class by far through all iterations of WoW. In my personal opinion, I don't think it's a really great leveling class specifically for a couple reasons. One of them is what I just mentioned with Rogue. You're wearing leather until level 40, getting mail at level 40 definitely helps, but you're still getting beat on a ton. And also, this is just my personal experience, but in my experience, leveling a shaman from 45 to 60 or after level 45 becomes a lot harder than it was before that. I typically level as enhancement, and this is really the time in leveling where mobs start to have a ton of health. You're spending a lot of time, you know, just getting missed, dodge, parried with a two-hander. To be fair, I don't have a lot of experience leveling as elemental. Maybe it's better 45 to 60 and I should have made the swap, but that experience is really why I have it rated in B tier. I think finishing out a shaman through the leveling experience is one of the harder classes to do it with. I will say shaman is super strong early on, like maybe it has one of the best level 1 to 20s of any class, and obviously once you get Wind Fury at level 30, that is super strong for a little while before it starts to fall off. Typically between 50 and 60, I was actually using Rockbiter instead on my enhancement shaman just for more consistent damage, but you can't deny those Wind Fury crits are really fun. A big upside of shaman as well, again, is the class flavor. You get to do class quests for every one of the totems, so that's earth, fire, water, and air. Some are much deeper than others. The earth one is really quick because you do it in the starter zone, and also for some reason the air one is really quick, but the fire totem and the water totem quests are really deep and really fun in terms of class fantasy. The water totem quest line specifically has you traveling all over the world, and it's just really good class flavor, so I enjoy that a lot. But overall, because shaman is nothing spectacular after level 20, and it's one of the harder classes I think to level after level 45, I have it in B tier, but again, still my favorite class, and I enjoy it a lot. Next class is Warrior, which is also in B tier below Shaman. Should be noted, of course, a lot of you probably know this already, but Warrior leveling is incredibly gear dependent, so this could absolutely jump up if you're playing it as like a second character. You're able to send it greens and updated gear all the time. Warrior speeds up a lot, but as far as like rolling it as your first character in the vanilla WoW leveling experience, it's pretty tough. As you get up into the higher levels, I think it gets a lot better. Like post 40, it's almost the inverse of Shaman in that regard. But the beginner levels and just, I don't know, making it through the first half of the levels, the first half of the game, if it's your first character, it's one of the worst for sure. It's really, really tough. Fighting more than one mob at a time before you get sweeping strikes is just like, you know, really risky. Have some experience leveling Warrior in hardcore as well, and I was pretty scared if I wasn't doing like green quests that were 2 or 3 levels below me. I will say though, as we know, Vanilla Warrior is very fun. Once you start getting gear or good weapons, it's very, very fun. So again, if you're able to level a Warrior and you're consistently fed greens and updated gear and weapons, whether that's from your main or from your guild or whatever, then that experience could go up a lot. Decent class flavor in terms of quests as well. You do some quests for defensive stance, and obviously the Whirlwind Axe questline is iconic, so that's a pretty good one, but you probably aren't going to be doing that right at level 30 if you're rolling it as your first character for fresh. But yeah, Warrior, B tier leveling spec for me in vanilla. Next class is Hunter, who, no surprise, I have an S tier above Mage. Hunter is notorious for being a great leveling spec, especially in vanilla. There's tons of flavor with the class. Even just the pet management itself is super flavorful. You know, sending it in for attacks, feeding it, keeping it happy, healing it up with min pet, all that stuff is really, really core to the class and really fun in vanilla. You also have more utility than I think people give it credit for. You have, you know, Frost and Freezing Trap if you need to use them. Immolation Trap is a great DPS boost while you're leveling. You have Intimidation as a stun if you're leveling as Beast Mastery. You have Wing Clip to slow mobs in melee range. And also your pet itself can have some utility if you're using Screech from an Owl or Charge from a Boar. It's just a really, really fun class to level in vanilla WoW, and you can even go crazy with it knowing that your range weapon timer and your melee weapon timer are on different swing timers in vanilla. A lot of really fast Hunter levelers will actually pull 2 mobs at once, and they'll have their pet on one at range and shoot it, and then they'll tab over to the one in melee and hit it with their melee, and they can basically kill 2 mobs at once that way. Extremely fast and efficient and very, very fun. Hunters also have the added bonus of being able to do quests much higher level than them, or elite quests more consistently than basically any other class because of the way ranged attacks work in vanilla. Your pet can take all the damage for you for a certain amount of time, and also ranged attacks don't deal with glancing blows, which is one of the reasons why killing mobs a lot higher level than you in vanilla can be hard for other classes. So you're basically just a solo leveling machine on Hunter. I think people kind of know this already, so I'm gonna move on, but big fan of Hunter leveling, big fan of Hunter and Vanilla in general. All right, down to 3 classes. Next is Paladin, which poor Paladin is the only class I have in C tier. It's pretty hard to find redeeming qualities for Paladin leveling, I'm gonna be honest. The number one thing that comes to mind right away is the dopamine hit that you get when your Seal of Command procs. You do get a free mount at level 40, so that's a big plus. If this is gonna be your first character on Fresh, you actually won't have to pay for a mount when you hit level 40. And if you end up going the AoE leveling route, I think you can start this at level 42. It's whenever you get Blessing of Sanctuary and Consecration, whenever you access that many talent points, that can really speed up your leveling as well. But otherwise, as people know, Paladin leveling is very slow and very monotonous. You're putting up seals, you're judging, and you're auto-attacking, and that's basically the entire experience all the way up, which, you know, isn't that fun, and it's also pretty slow. I personally will be rolling a Paladin as my main alliance character in Vanilla, so I'm subjecting myself to this, but I think Paladin is probably the worst leveling class in Vanilla. 2 classes left. Next is Priest, which I have in A tier. I will say it's pretty likely, depending on what you like in leveling and class gameplay dynamics, that you might disagree with where I put Priest here. A lot of people say they find Priest leveling incredibly boring, mostly because the most efficient way to level is to put up a shield on yourself, put some dots on the target, and then wand it to death. I find this playstyle pretty chill and fun, but I'm also probably biased because I've leveled several Priests over the years. In terms of ease, it's one of the easiest classes to level in Vanilla. I leveled a Priest in Hardcore, and it was extremely easy. I almost never felt threatened as long as I was playing smartly. I will say it's not necessarily the fastest, even though it is easy. But another big upside this time around, especially relevant to Fresh, is that Priest is going to be very easy to get into dungeon groups as you're leveling up. Priest has tons of versatility leveling up, and you can basically join group content whenever you want, because objectively the best spec to level with pre-level 40 is Discipline, which means you're going to be able to heal extremely well anyway in your normal leveling spec. And even after level 40, if you end up going the Holy Disciplined Smite build, you're actually marginally slower than Shadow leveling, and you also can heal dungeons extremely well. It's more of a nuke things with Smite and drink after a couple mobs, kind of like Mage playstyle. It's definitely way different than Shadow leveling, but the fact that you can just hop in as one of the best dungeon healers whenever you want without having to change spec, basically from 1 to 60 if you wanted to, I think puts Priest a little higher on this tier list. Big fan of Priest leveling. There's almost no class quests that you do aside from like getting your green robe in the starting area, at least pre-level 60 that is, but just keep in mind, if you're leveling Priest, you're probably going to be dotting and wanding stuff a lot, so keep that in mind. If you love it, you love it. If you don't, maybe not the class for you. All right, and final class is Warlock, which of course is going into S tier right next to Hunter, Druid, and Mage. Warlock leveling is amazing. You get a lot of the same benefits that Hunter gets, mainly with pets. If you know how to play Warlock too, you can basically do whatever you want while leveling. The mantra is, if you can fear it, you can kill it. You get a ton of utility too, namely in non-hardcore scenarios. Just being able to have a soul stone on yourself at times is incredibly useful, because sometimes running back to your body after you die can take forever. There's tons of class fantasy with this quest. You basically quest for every single pet that you earn. You also get a free mount at level 40, which is pretty sick. And if you end up going the Affliction drain tanking route using a succubus, it gets really fun like after level 40. I find Warlock personally to be a ton of fun leveling in Vanilla WoW. I think it's one of the better specs for sure, and also, like I said, a free mount at level 40, so an amazing first choice if you're planning on, you know, leveling multiple characters. But yeah, love Warlock. And so that's gonna do it for the Vanilla WoW leveling tier list. I would love to know in the comment section below what you're planning to roll on Fresh Vanilla WoW, if you've even decided yet. I know a lot of you are so excited you're still wrestling with what class to play, which is awesome. As always, thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you on November 21st when these Fresh Realms launch. I am so excited. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.